Hi everyone. Now in this session we're going to try to understand some of the misconceptions that we see in Western newspapers by looking at some of the work that the former World Bank economist Yukon Huang has carried out on the Chinese economy. I've titled this China's Myths, and we'll have a look at these points in turn. I'll put some links to videos of Yukon Huang so you can take a look at his work if you like to. Okay, so first point is that cities are not big enough. Okay, Yukon Huang argues that actually some cities will need to grow up to 50 million in size. He just says that this process needs to be far better managed so that it provides cleaner, more productive, more innovative growth. How can this be facilitated? Well, it's really about having cluster cities surrounding a main economic centre. And those cluster cities must be linked by good mass transit infrastructure to ensure that people can actually transport themselves easily across large areas. Okay. The role of corruption. Well, Yukon Huang says, despite what we've seen with Xi Jinping's crackdown on corruption, that actually corruption has been a good thing for the Chinese economy overall. Why is this? Well, he says that it's helped to drive forward economic growth because if you consider the highly decentralized nature of the political system in China and the fact that party members want to actually generate economic performance for their regions, they will make sure that they work very closely with private firms and state-owned enterprises to ensure the growth of those firms and to ensure the profitability of those firms and to ensure that they can continue to employ larger and larger members of the region. Now, that of course works towards Communist Party vested interests. Okay, so the nature of corruption has generally been a good thing. Of course, this can go too far. So, for instance, by granting monopoly rights, that can cause dynamic efficiency through supernormal profits. But at the same time, you want to have some degree of market contestability so that new firms can break in and actually shake up the market and innovate. Okay, so this can go too far. Okay, so next point, the social uprising will actually bring down the Communist Party. Well, Yukon Huang says no, it will actually strengthen the Communist Party. Why is that? Well, it's because if there is a problem, something that you feel really upset about as a Chinese citizen, that you feel that you and many other people are being unfairly treated perhaps, what will you do about it? Well, you will go to the next rank of the political system. Now that means that you're actually communicating higher up within the Chinese state and eventually, of course, the Communist Party itself. So this means that actually the Communist Party is seen as an organisation which actually does look after its people and make sure that the economy is running relatively smoothly. Okay, so it's an interesting point, that one. Next up, that China's property prices reflect a bubble. Well, Yukon Huang compares China's situation to India and the prices there, and he says no, it's not a bubble. Further to that, when you consider that 10 to 15 years ago, the actual property prices were, well, everything was owned by the state. So you've had a lot of liberalisation within the real estate or property market, and therefore prices have increased dramatically. They've gone up 600% in some regions. Anywhere else in the world, of course, you would say that would be a bubble. If you saw 600 or even 200% in London over 10 years, you'd certainly think that was a bubble. But in China, it's unique because of that circumstance. The fact that property was state-owned before, and now, yes, it has increased dramatically. But you would expect that under price liberalisation. Okay. That the US trade deficit is due to China's protectionism. Well, again, Yukon Huang says no. The US has been running a persistent current account deficit for over 40 years. He also believes and argues that the the US will continue to run a current account deficit because the greenback or the dollar is the natural reserve currency of the world, and therefore there is a very, very high level of demand for the US dollar, which means it always trades at a bit of a premium as being seen as that natural reserve currency. So that extra demand for the US dollar means that the dollar, of course, is appreciated to a high value, and therefore US goods will be less price competitive in overseas markets. Okay, so next point is that debt is not really a concern. So lots of people in the West, of course, are concerned about the level of debt in China, total debt reaching 270% of GDP now. But again, Yukon Huang says, no, this isn't really too much of a concern. Because when you look at China's debt, it's a little bit above what you see with other LEDCs, but it's below that of other MEDCs. But then if you look at China's GDP per capita, you see exactly the same thing, that China's GDP per capita is above other LEDCs, but below, of course, MEDCs. So he actually says, no, this is pretty much in line with what you may expect. Okay, what's perhaps more of a concern here is the fact that debt has accelerated quite dramatically over a relatively short period of time, 10 years or so. Okay, so that's the point worth noting there. Okay, and final one, China will not pursue widespread privatization. Now, Yukon Huang argues that because of Xi Jinping's Socialist Party leanings, and that he is a Communist Party member through and through, he's not likely to pursue widespread privatizations unless their particular SOEs will perform much, much better in the private sector. So it's going to be more of a mixed ownership system. It's going to be more finding out about what is the ideal system to ensure that China can sustain and maintain its economic growth in the future, as well as the Communist Party maintaining a degree of power over the economy. Right, there we go. That's it.